Resuming debate, the honourable member for Vancouver, Kingsway.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the issue before this House right now is a serious one, an issue that raises serious questions and, in fact, I think gets to the heart of some of the most important and profound subjects that are capable of being debated in the House of Commons. We have the spectre of violent movements in the world, and that spectre is real. It is serious. Acts of oppression, of kidnapping, of rape, of ethnic and cultural targeting, of armed conflict, violence are present all over the world. We have ISIL in Iraq. We have Boko Haram in Nigeria. We have events in Ukraine. We have civil war in Syria. We have recent conflicts in Israel and Gaza. We have tension in the Caucasus between Armenia and Azerbaijan. We have conflicts all over Africa and in the second and third world. This government today is asking this Parliament and the Canadian people to commit Canada to war in one of these conflicts. They assert that the acts of ISIL in Iraq are of such a nature that war is the only reasonable response of Canada, and that ISIL in Iraq represents a threat to Canadians here at home. I respectfully disagree with these assertions, Mr. Speaker. Now, I have been privileged to represent the good people of Vancouver Kingsway in this House for the last 7 years, and we debate many important issues and have done over that time, but in my view, none of those issues are more important or warrant more serious scrutiny and attention than when we are discussing committing our troops and committing Canada to war. So I think the place I'd like to start in my remarks, Mr. Speaker, is I'd like to review some history. The old adage that those who don't pay attention to history are doomed to repeat it, I think, is a time-tested and true one. So I'd like to review what has been the experience of the West in terms of Western intervention, military interventions in the Middle East. And let's just take a brief synopsis of the last 30 years. In Afghanistan in the 1980s, the United States armed the Taliban. At that time, the Taliban were the Americans' friends when they were attacking the Soviets. Didn't matter to the Americans at that time that the Taliban's orthodoxy or doctrines or dogma were oppressive, misogynist, sexist, and culturally intolerant and sensitive. At that time, the United States armed them because they had a common mutual enemy. 9/11 happened. The U.S. then demanded the Afghani government deliver up what they believed were the perpetrators of 9/11, who had been, in their view, hiding in Afghanistan. When the Afghani government either could not or would not do so, the United States and a coalition of Western countries attacked Afghanistan, including Canada. Canada was mired in Afghanistan for 10 years. We lost well over 150 brave soldiers. We had thousands more Canadian soldiers injured, traumatized this day, and Canada spent billions of dollars in Afghanistan. What's Afghanistan like today, Mr. Speaker? They're not a democracy. Tribal divisions are intact. Opium production is at record levels. You have a country that's been devastated, where Western values have failed to take root and, in fact, are rejected today as strongly as they've ever been. Let's talk about Libya. Just a few years ago in this House, this government stood here and said that they had to commit Canadian forces to enforce a no-fly zone in Libya, and the opposition, despite what the Minister of Defence has erroneously told the Canadian public, endorsed that mission. We warned, however, at that time that we would not support a mission that was morphed into a regime change one, and that's exactly what happened. So we committed to a mission that eventually resulted in the removal of the Gaddafi regime in Libya. And what happened as a result of that military intervention? The country descended into chaos and violence on an almost unprecedented level today There is no democracy, stability, justice, or rule of law in Libya today, and I haven't heard this government say a word about the situation in Libya since they urged the Canadian public to go to Libya to remove a despotic government, and they have run away from the accountability for those actions. So here we have the other example of Iraq. Now, I have a feeling of déjà vu today, Mr. Speaker, because this is not the first time that a Western country has been asked to intervene in Iraq in a military manner. In 2003, the United States led a coalition and attacked Iraq. This was based, of course, what we now know as on fabrications and outright deception. Iraq was accused of importing yellow cake uranium from Africa to fuel its nuclear program. They were accused of developing weapons of mass destruction. American diplomats at the highest levels asserted that this was the case. It turned out that these were outright lies. Absolute fabrications. Massive military force was unleashed on Iraq. Hundreds of thousands of people were killed. Massive infrastructure damage totaling in the billions of dollars was inflicted on Iraq. Regime change, in fact, occurred. Saddam Hussein was removed and replaced by what the West said was a better government, the government of Mr. Maliki. What happened after we installed him? Brutal oppression of minorities, corruption on a massive scale, no democracy taking root, a country shattered, divided, and socially fractured. And as a result of massive bombing in 2003 that we said was going to restore democracy, human rights, and rule of law to Iraq, where are we today in 2015? We have ISIL in Iraq. One could argue, Mr. Speaker, that not only did military intervention not accomplish any of the goals that always are the goals asserted at the beginning of a mission, but in fact, they created the opposite situation. There was no ISIS or ISIL back in 2003, Mr. Speaker. There is today. If bombing and military intervention is a way to make Iraq and countries around that region safer and more conforming to Western norms, then that would have been the case after massive bombing and military intervention occurred for 8 years and 8 months, from 2003 to 2011. 30 years, Mr. Speaker, of a Western approach to countries in the Middle East and in that region based on intervention, based on violence, based on military intervention, based on deception, has resulted in only one conclusion for anybody who's viewing the situation objectively, and that is an utter, absolute failure to meet any of the objectives that were the objectives stated at the beginning of those missions. And worse, a complete absence of accountability on behalf of governments like the Canadian government, like the American government, or the British government, who told the people of these countries that they should be intervening in these countries to make their population safer. It has made the world more dangerous. So, Mr. Speaker, what should Canada do? Canadians that I talk to and represent want a different foreign policy than that characterized by the current government, characterized by one of war and military intervention and demonizing and jingoistic exhortations to violence. They want Canada that resorts to our history that characterized our foreign policy for most of our time as a country, where Canada was a peacekeeper, where Canada was a peacemaker, where Canada was regarded as an honest broker on the world stage, where Canada is regarded as a fair dealer, where we practice diplomacy and take a leadership role. Mr. Speaker, there are other ways that Canada can be addressing this very serious problem. We could shift Canada's warlike approach to one of democracy building. We could help countries like Egypt, Iraq, Syria, and Yemen develop democratic, responsible governments that build respectful, rights-based societies. We can help these countries build strong civil societies, assist with constitution making, help them build public infrastructure, help them raise the educational levels of their populations, help with poverty alleviation, provide economic aid, provide humanitarian assistance. These are the roles that stand in contrast to the one being proposed to us here today, which is, here's how we can help the people of Iraq. We will go in and add more violence to to a violent situation. And the biggest myth of all is that this will make Canadians safer. Mr. Speaker, the truth is we haven't had one ISIL-inspired terrorist attack on this soil yet, objectively. Not one. But if Canada commits to forces and starts bombing ISIL and ISIS positions in Iraq, it's a matter of logic that it increases the chances that those people will feel entitled to take retributive action here in Canada. So in order to keep Canadians safe and to restore Canada to a position on the world stage that Canadians want, Mr. Speaker, I urge all members of this House to reject this ill-conceived motion that is not based in fact and has even less logic and principle behind it than any other one that I've seen in this House.